Classmate from Georgia for hosting this hour tonight. We spend an awful lot of time at these microphones, both sides, basically talking past each other. We usually the rhetoric is heated, and we don't listen. My experience is this is the worst 435 listeners on the face of the earth, because we're clearly more interested in hearing what I've got to say than listening to what you've got to say. And it happens time and time again at these microphones, basically because we tend to polarize and take the absolute positions, knowing full well that the best path for America is somewhere in the middle. The best path for America includes working all our alternatives and trying to develop those and trying to see as far over the horizon as we can for a day in which crude oil and natural gas will no longer be available, not by choice, but by the fact that it's all been used up. It is a finite resource. We should be conserving everywhere we get, not only on an individual basis, but collectively as well. And yes, from our position, we should be exploring and developing and producing American resources, crude oil, natural gas, uranium, nuclear, oil shale, tar sands, the full gamut of these resources. And so if we could actually spend some time and sit together and try to work out our differences, I think there's a solution here that's really best for America. When I first read the use it or lose it bill, my first reaction was, how could 236 of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle and all of their staffs and all of their hired consultants know so little about a fundamental industry that is so vital to our national security, our economic security, and that's the oil business. And then I came to the cynical conclusion that I was wrong. They do know about it. They do know exactly what they're doing by this bill that was up earlier today on a suspension calendar that we were able to defeat, because over a third of us said that's wrong-headed. Here's a quick basic. When an oil and gas company, it's generally a major oil company because it requires so much money, leases in the Gulf of Mexico, where we've been drilling for a long time, they pay a lease bonus, which is a sizable amount of money that's given to the federal government that says, for a time certain, I get exclusive rights to explore and try to find crude oil and natural gas on this particular parcel of land. That bonus money is a sunk cost, because if they find oil, they get to produce it. If they don't find oil, too bad. This industry, much maligned from these microphones, is a group of dedicated, hardworking, patriotic, honest people who have an incredible tolerance for risk in this environment. So they put up the lease bonus money, sometimes millions and millions of dollars, just for the right to then wade into the bureaucratic morass that we've created around this circumstances, where you've got 27 permits and all kinds of stuff to get to just till you get to start the process. The process includes geological studies, geophysical studies, an evaluation to try to find where on that parcel of land the best spot may be. You've got sunk costs or regulatory compliance costs. Then once you've decided where you're going to drill, or that you've decided that you think that there are commercial reserves in place under that dirt, under that ocean, then you still don't know it till you drill it. And then you've got the cost of drilling and the intangible drilling costs and all the expense there. And then if you find commercial quantities of crude oil and natural gas, you have to build a production platform that's got to be uniquely built for the particular formation you've got. And that's got to be moved out into the Gulf and anchored. And so what you have is millions and millions, and in some instances billions of dollars of shareholder equity and debt that's been invested in trying to find crude oil and natural gas. And most of that is sunk cost. Some of it's salvageable, but most of it's sunk cost. And the only way they get a return on their investment, the only way they justify to their shareholders that they're making the right decisions, is to produce whatever crude oil and natural gas is in place. And so there is plenty of incentives already built in to produce. And the idea that they would, quote unquote, sit on production in hopes that this price gets even higher, which they know the price is too high now, is just wrong-headed. And
well, not only that, but if the gentleman, reclaim my time for just a minute, did not the Democratic majority in 1992 extend that lease period to 10 years? Was it prior not 5 years or 7 years, what it was?
Well, the traditional offshore lease needs to be at least 10 years because from start to finish, we've got some graphs here that we can show you the logical business-like progression that companies have to walk down. Now, what's not mentioned so far is all the litigation costs that are associated with these leases, particularly in the Rocky Mountains. If a company is able to win a lease, they are immediately sued by environmentalists to prevent their exploring for it. This current price of gasoline and crude oil is a product of supply and demand. About 86 million barrels a day of production, about 85 million barrels a day of usage, and that varies from day to day. Inventory start dropping means that demand is gone to beyond the current production supply. The most immediate areas for quick relief in this regard would be Iraq. Iraqi government has recently reached out to Exxon Mobil, Shell, BP, and Chevron to ask the experts, the folks who have the money to be able to do it, to come into Iraq and help them increase the amount of production that Iraq produces from oil and gas. They're about half of what they were under the Shah, and their fields are on land and the most quickly responsive to getting new oil and gas supplies to the market. Charles Schumer, our colleague on the other side of the building, immediately weighed in, said that's wrong-headed, and he wants to try to figure out some way to prevent Iraq from developing Iraq's resources. It's not good enough that we prevent America from developing American resources, but now we want to tell the Iraqis how they should be doing it as well. So we're about to run out of time, and I suspect my colleagues got some other things to say. I want to appreciate getting to weigh in on this. Here's the bottom line. Post-World War II, we've developed an American lifestyle that was incredibly dependent on inexpensive gasoline. Suburbs, rural America, that requires being able to drive to and from work, to and from recreation. Maintaining these high prices, as our colleagues across the aisle are intent on doing, is, in my view, an attack on that way of life. If you look at, and you can call it partisan or not, but if you look at where the bulk of the Democratic support is in Congress, it's in big cities, where they have access to mass transit, trains and buses and those kinds of things. But in rural America, and flyover America, where most Republican support is, we don't have access to that. I can assure you, the folks who live at Lake LBJ, named after Lyndon Johnson, and work in Marble Falls and Llano and Burnett, there are no buses to get to and from work. They've got to drive their car. So as we continue to on purpose, maintain these high gasoline prices, this is an attack on suburban way of life, attack on rural America and a rural way of life, and a lifestyle that served us well since post-World War II. One final statement. When I go home, this is all my constituents talk about. And if I were to come up here and take the positions that I'm going to ignore what they're saying, the way our Democrats appear to be doing, I'd get tossed out of office, because apparently they're not hearing the same thing that you and I are hearing when we go home. Apparently in Democratic districts, high gasoline prices are not particularly relevant. Which begs to the question that 71% of Americans want to drill. So I appreciate my colleague letting me speak tonight. We can solve this. We can fix this, but it's going to require some modification on our part, some modification on our Democratic friends' part. But we really do need to start listening to each other and quit demagoguing and particularly with respect to the oil business, considering those folks less than human as we look at what they do for America every day. Yield back.